Hey everyone, welcome to a very special live stream today. We're going to be talking about Terry Silver and the return of Terry Silver in Cobra Kai Season 4. And we're very lucky today because we have some special guests. We have Drew and Badway from the Last Row podcast. Drew, Badway, thank you so much for joining us today.
Again, thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be back.
Yes, absolutely. And these guys are some of the original Terry Silver fans. They understand Terry deep down. They know what makes Terry tick. And so we'll have lots of great thoughts on Terry's reappearance in Cobra Kai Season 4. And the Last Row podcast did a special bonus episode about Terry Silver in Cobra Kai Season 4. And I was very honored to be asked to be part of that podcast episode. So we're going to do this discussion today. This will be kind of like a supplement to that. So everyone, the links in the description to that podcast episode, definitely go down, listen to it. There's some amazing discussions there. But today we're going to be talking about all these things that, maybe we talked about in the podcast episode, but, maybe there are going to be new topics. Maybe you're going to have topics. We're doing a special live stream, okay, that is going to help support UNICEF. So we're going to help the children in Ukraine. So if you donate, you're going to see a donate button. If you donate, that is going to help UNICEF and support the children of Ukraine right now. We're watching that situation unfolding. And so if you like, that would be an amazing thing to do. So that's what this live stream will be about today. So I encourage you to donate. And with that, let's start talking about Terry Silver. So Terry, okay, Drew, Badway. We saw him in Karate Kid 3. We've talked before about how amazing he is in Karate Kid 3, and now he's back in Cobra Kai Season 4. So, Badway, I was wondering if you could start us off and kind of talk about how is he the same and how is he different in this new incarnation of Terry Silver?
Well, I feel like he's different in that he seems more in the background, calculated about his actions. When we first meet him, obviously he's in a different world, he's in a different light. But when he comes into the fold of Cobra Kai, I forget, it was right around episode 3 or so, we see him kind of taking a backseat to Kreese and kind of observing. And I feel like he all along was kind of plotting, but sort of waiting for Kreese to not just make his move, because I don't know if he was intentionally set on overtaking Kreese or double crossing him, but he kind of wanted to maybe see what this iteration of 2021/2022 Cobra Kai was all about. So I do like the wait and see approach, which initially annoyed me as a viewer, but in the whole of the season, I grew to really appreciate by the end. Now, what do you think, Drew?
Yeah, no, I agree with that way like 100%. And for me, like, I thought the interesting thing about it, and especially with what you said at the end there, where it was almost annoying as a viewer, like I wanted to see this unhinged, just crazy person. And, as it paid off throughout the season, and, obviously everyone I think has watched it by now, especially if you're watching this, it goes to a good place. But the thing about 3, the original movie, is just, it seemed as if he was almost like the big bad and Kreese was sort of his underling. And this movie flipped it around, especially in the beginning. And I think, you could argue that Terry was playing Kreese the whole time, and maybe he was unhinged, and, whether he broke bad or however he went, who knows? But I sort of like where it wound up. But I thought the cocaine excuse, like when I heard that in the beginning, I get why they did it. But at first it kind of bothered me until it paid off at the end. But I think he proves that he's more patient and calculating in this one, even though the first movie he really was, like in Karate Kid 3, he was still patient. You just saw more of it. So
right.
Yeah.
And we've got Gary Hernandez says Terry Silver's the same person that was in Karate Kid 3, but more focused.
Yeah,
which is a really, really interesting point. Yeah, I agree too. It's tough because some of the things I love about Terry Silver are those kind of larger than life things, those over the top things, the great villain, the classic villains, and I that whole sentiment about that Badway was talking about was kind of frustrating at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of was, but I had a feeling, just knowing Cobra Kai, I knew that they would have to get to that. And I knew that maybe this was going to be kind of a slow burn. And, I've said it before with the cocaine thing, Drew, to your point. I was always worried that they would kind of use that as an excuse to change the character, or maybe what we loved about Terry was just the cocaine. But I think really a lot of the what we love about Terry was still there. So something I know we talked a little bit about last time is like, do you think he's actually a good person? Like, do you think he's still the same bad guy that he was, or do you think that there's more of a Jekyll Hyde thing going on, or what do you guys think?
It was interesting because throughout the season, you see these flashes where I think I got to give Chris Maffei a shout out because he called him Tofu Terry, as we said on the episode that we did together. I think he, part of him maybe wanted to reform a little bit. Maybe he was trying this whole thing of like, maybe I'll try to be a good guy for once. And even the scenes where he showed up at Miyagi-Do and he was trying to be, nice to Daniel, like you could argue that wasn't an act and he was trying to see. And then as he sort of was like, well, why would I try to be good? Nobody wants me to be good. Like Daniel's kind of spit in his face, rightfully so, right? I wouldn't fault Daniel for saying, man, this guy's kind of crazy, and he showed back up. But I think, there's a lot of flashes throughout the season where he did. But then there's also on the other side where you can also flip it the other way and say, look at all the calculated moves that he's making, the way he's playing Kreese, the way he's saying everybody has a weakness throughout the whole season. It was a masterful act of the way that he sort of played that. So I think you could argue one way or the other. I like to believe that he tried to be good, even if for a very short period of time. I don't know what you guys think. That's my perspective.
Yeah, I do think that there was. I don't think the quote unquote Tofu Terry was an act per se. I just think it was a mask, and it was maybe just someone that is, who's on the wagon looking for an excuse to fall off, basically, where all it took was Kreese to walk in the door, and he was angry at Kreese when he first saw him because he knew, I'm gonna go down this path again. I know I am. Yeah. There he is. All right, let's do this. The resistance was kind of just, it was a false resistance, I feel, when he initially tried to push Kreese away, where he knew his true inner self, and he was basically waiting for an opportunity for it to bust back out.
Yeah.
Right.
And like I said on our podcast discussion, in that opening scene when he's playing that piano, there's no sane man that plays the piano like that. They're all, so the madness was inside of him all along, even from that opening scene. It's just he was looking for an excuse to bust back out.
Right. He did. He played the piano like a man possessed, and you don't have that in you unless you have the evil inside. And,
clear madman.
You ponytail or no ponytail, like the ponytail completes the transformation, know, and like we've joked about it getting wetter and tighter throughout the season as he got more evil. I mean, my hair is as dripping wet as I could make it today for this episode. I try to get it as wet as possible, and I can't pull it into a ponytail. I wanted to do it in honor of Terry, but just wet hair will have to do for now, I guess. Try to get my evil out.
Yeah, you've got bad guy wrestler's hair for sure going on right now. So.
I feel like Bret Hart or something.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I thought, great point that Chris made in the podcast, and again, everyone who just joined the podcast, the bonus episode is down below. The link's down below. Definitely go listen to that. But Chris was on the podcast. He made a really good point that, they do a pretty good job where you could kind of look at it any way you want to look at it. But I have to agree with you guys. Like, even from the beginning, playing the piano, and you saw just like the kind of the glee in his face, like even in the very first episode, when Terry was unleashed, you saw that Terry was totally in there. You know what I mean? Like, so now this is going to be a Terry Silver discussion. Okay. But I know that Drew and Badway in their podcast, they talk about other movies from decades past. So I am going to put up Dee's comment here. Star Wars could have used the writers that have produced Cobra Kai. And I was wanting to get your guys' reaction.
I gotta say something funny here, because we have a running joke on our podcast that Bowie doesn't watch space movies, and I don't know. Can we tell the story about episode 3, Badway? Will it embarrass you too much?
No, good.
I gotta tell you guys this, and it's a good story. So I'm a relatively casual Star Wars fan. I do enjoy it and all this stuff. And first, I agree with what Dee said here, 100%. Because the way that the source material was respected in this and the way that they kind of took it. They really understand what the old stuff was about and put a fresh spin on it. Whereas, one could argue, right? And again, I don't feel super passionate about this one or the other, but one could argue that, maybe Disney's just trying to use some things and make some money here, which, that's a giant corporation for you, right? But I understand exactly what you're saying. But just a funny aside, back in the day, I used to work in a movie theater. Badway and I joke we used to be in the movie business. And I used to watch movies like days in advance. So when Star Wars Episode 3 came out, you could argue that was probably like the most anticipated movie of all time, right? At that time, you want to see how Vader takes the turn. And we watched it like 5 days early. And I remember it was like me, Badway, a couple of friends, and like I think it was like during the lightsaber battle or something in the volcano or on the volcano planet. I turned over to him and he was sleeping.
Oh no.
It's funny to me because space movies, right? Like
the privilege of watching Episode 3 that early, where millions of Star Wars fans would have paid whatever to be in my seat, and I'm sitting there wasting it, falling asleep. And I apologize to every Star Wars fan out there.
I had to laugh about it because it was a fun story. And like, no, I mean, I agree with what D's saying. I definitely do. I don't know what you think, Ken or Badway, but I think the respect to the source material and the way that they understand it and put a fresh spin on it, but in a way that doesn't alienate like old fans, it seems like they do it pretty well. So I have a good time watching this, and I agree with you.
Yeah. What do you think, Badway?
Well, I mean, for full transparency, I do not follow much of the Star Wars universe, but I do feel, as an outsider, with all due respect to everyone that likes the series, I feel that, as an outsider, it seems like it's too much Star Wars. I feel like there's too many iterations of it, and maybe if they were more selective about their storytelling rather than just throwing it all out against the wall and hoping all of it sticks. And I feel for a large portion of the fan base that it will be consumed one way or another, only to hate it or complain about it or to, wish it was better. So I do agree that with a team that Cobra Kai has that really, it takes a calculated approach to the source material, really a love letter to the series and the franchise. They could use the franchise of Star Wars could use someone with that kind of care to, I don't know, just tell a more respected story towards the source material instead of just throwing new ideas up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Right. And I think this is kind of a fascinating comment because I might do a video about something like this. Just looking at, especially if you're looking at the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, what did they do there? And then what did Cobra Kai do with the original Karate Kid? And just see like what's different here? Why is it that the sequel trilogy was so divisive, but Cobra Kai, the series, was almost universally loved by everyone who loved the original Karate Kid movies?
There's a lot there.
There is a lot there. And of course, there is the Cobra Kai or Karate Kid Star Wars tie-in with Terry Silver and Emperor Palpatine, too. Yeah. Actually, if people in this comment can put in the comments here, if you can put incidents that you thought in Cobra Kai Season 4, he seemed to resemble Palpatine, let me know, because I know I have a few. Here's a comment from Cyborgana. This is about Terry Silver. Not a mask. Severe PTSD is very complex mental illness to manage. Triggers have to be avoided, and Kreese is a whole nuke to Terry. Yeah. Pure kryptonite. Why do you think Terry hung up the phone?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you could see it, right? Because, and you guys, if you've seen me talk about this, you know that I'm a Thomas Ian Griffith fanboy here. And I think he's an amazing actor. And his performance this season, speaking of PTSD, like you mentioned here, this is a fantastic comment because the way that he acted, and he even showed, like you said, he avoided Kreese. He didn't want to answer the phone. He hung up the phone. He kept avoiding him. And then he said, why'd you have to do this? Why'd you have to go and do this? And he basically brought him out, and he brought this side of him out that he was trying to maybe suppress. And I think at one point they might have even shown him taking some medication when he was in the mirror, right? Trying to tie up his ponytail. It's like this switch flipped and he just went back to this old Terry. And I think that's a really, really good, insightful comment. And, it's a good point to make here. So,
yeah, I'm not one to much speak on PTSD. I don't have experience on that, but I do admit that I tend to forget that part of the backstory when analyzing the characters. And it is a big part of it. And I do feel that maybe Kreese is more mentally capable of, suppressing or internalizing what happened much better than Terry. And maybe that is true. Maybe Terry was trying to get away from it all, and any semblance of that time in his life, like Kreese coming back, that is a very good point. A great comment.
Right. And I think one of the reasons we're able to talk about these nuances, of course, is Thomas Ian Griffith. I mean, as an actor, just absolutely incredible. I know all of us thought that many, many years ago, but it's so gratifying to see him come back, and really the world can see him now on a super popular show.
Yeah.
Just kind of show off all his talents,
Well,
and I don't know if you guys want to praise Thomas Ian Griffith.
I gotta give this guy. I'm gonna give him. I mean, we gave him. I think on our show we did a last row. I think it was the Terry Silver Villain of the Year award, and we named an award after him. And really, Thomas Ian Griffith he puts on an acting clinic, and I think the thing that is interesting about this is he was in a lot of things back in the day, and then he has since then not really done a lot of acting, right? I mean, he's done mostly screenwriting and stuff like that. For a guy to basically just like walk back onto the field, I use a lot of sports analogies. It's like, somebody's retired for like 10 years and then they go and like just throw like 50 touchdowns and like win the Super Bowl that year. That's kind of what he did this year. He came in and it was a tour de force. And I think there's a video on YouTube where somebody put a supercut of all the scenes, and I think he had like 15 minutes of total screen time in like a 5.5-hour series. But damn, if he didn't make every minute count, I mean, come on.
And as Chris put it, Chris Maffei in our podcast, he put a silver cloud over that entire town with those 15 minutes for real. And it speaks to his talent, to where he walked back on the set to play that character again after so many years. And I guess it would have been easy to, and this goes with the writers as well, to play Terry as we last saw him, maniacally losing and losing his crap and all that, but to play him with such nuance and the slow burn of slowly going back towards his madness and his super villainy as we know and love him. It was played perfectly. Like I can't imagine, walking away from a character for that long and then playing it so perfectly. No one in the series has really done that. I mean, all the actors have done great jobs, but Terry and Thomas Ian Griffith takes the cake there.
Oh, absolutely. And a big hi to Dave Srock. Dave saying hi to us. Dave is another super fan of Terry Silver, and he has friends growing up that were super fans of Terry Silver, and he's an extremely talented filmmaker. Amazing. He was a cinematographer for Cobra Kai back here. So if you guys haven't seen that, definitely check out Cobra Kai. But great to see Dave. And I just want to remind everyone who just joined that today you're going to see a donate button on this video. If you donate today, that money is going to go to help the children of Ukraine. So we figured we'd do a fundraiser. If you're able to and want to help out, we want to give you that option. So Melissa says, I feel like if Daniel had met Silver in season 4 before Kreese got to him, that while he still would have been hostile towards him, as said rightfully so, Terry would have been 100% accepting of it and not just 50% of it like he was in episode 5. What do you guys think of that? Terry meeting Daniel before Kreese. So Kreese isn't part of the equation.
Do you mean like where he's accepting of his former actions? Like, because he did come in there and instead of it pissing him off, like, and right. Where he went back to the car and said, we're going to go wipe the mat with these guys. Right. I think if that's what you mean, Melissa, yeah, I do agree. Because he seemed like he was trying to atone for his former sins. He even went in there kind of saying that. And I think he would have been 100% accepting of it, because I think he was trying. I mean, look, he's hooking up with someone who's making a mindfulness app. He clearly cares about some people, unless it's all a sham, like we said, maybe on the show. Mm-hmm. But I think he would have been accepting of it. I think he seemed like maybe he wanted to change. I don't know. It's up for debate, though. I don't know. What do you think, Badway?
I feel like, yeah, if he would have met Kreese in a totally different time, in a totally different place, sure. But him coming back to town and apologizing, whether Daniel believes it or not, like in the middle of this karate tournament where they have this rivalry going still, it seems like a ploy. It seems like another ploy. If he would have met Silver, non-ponytail on the streets, just kind of doing his thing, and he was very remorseful to, hey, let me take you out to dinner. I really, that was a dark time in my life at a different time, different place. Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that it was towards the karate tournament, yeah, that seems disingenuous.
Yeah, I think you're right. It seems like if Terry separately as Tofu Terry approached Daniel, kind of head down, as Badway said, take him out to dinner, just say, look, I just want to apologize for that whole thing. That would have been a different story than Terry showing up with the ponytail and the chain, looking like a badass with John Kreese unannounced. Right. And that it's almost like, how could he really think that would be accepted? That's almost like, you're going to accept my apology because I'm Muscle and I've got Kreese. I'm threatening you to accept my apology.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It was the most threatening apology I've ever heard in my life.
Well, just imagine though. Imagine like, Ken, you mentioned Palpatine and all this stuff.
Right.
Like, imagine just like, I'm actually putting myself in Daniel's shoes. Like, this dude just walks into your dojo, and your students are there, and this guy, I mean, think about it. It's like, this is 10 out of 10. I mean, he got like a damn near perfect score on our villain scale. Like, the greatest villain of all time just walks into your house or your place of work, and he's just like, hey, what's up? Like, what do you do? Like, that probably triggered something with Daniel. Like, I don't blame him for his reaction. He's probably, and Johnny doesn't know who the hell this guy is.
Right.
He's like, who is that guy? I mean, he maybe heard the name, but he has no idea. And then him and Kreese together, after Kreese basically just tried to murder him, like, right? Not that long ago. That's pretty like shocking, It's, I got to give credit to Thomas Ian Griffith. He's an amazing actor, and he really sold that scene. And there's just so much nuance in this show for what it is. I still don't think it gets the respect that it deserves. People are finally starting to talk about it, but this season in particular was just incredible.
Yeah, it really was. And we're looking for Terry Silver Palpatine moments in season 4, Emperor Palpatine moments. John Utah has one. Silver looked like Palpatine in the store when talking to Daniel.
Yeah. Very
interesting. So if you guys have Palpatine moments that you say, go ahead and leave them here in the chat, and we'll highlight them. So and Sebastian says, John Kreese and Terry Silver are no longer friends. Now they're enemies. So this is a complex relationship between these two. So one thing I brought up in a previous video was, yeah, they're friends, but could Terry Silver really be anyone's true bestest friend? Do you think that they were friends in the way we think of friends, or do you think that it was kind of a sort of relationship built on kind of like war trauma and dysfunction and power struggle? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think the interesting thing about that is, and Terry showed it this season, it seemed like he was kind of tired of Kreese constantly holding this "I saved your life in Vietnam" thing. Now, whether Kreese put that on him or Terry put it on himself because he said, oh, I owe you one, or I owe you my life, and he kind of signed himself up for that, it seemed like Terry was just kind of done with that, and that hung over their relationship like forever. And they even had that flashback scene where they were in the tattoo parlor, and you got this shed of the dynamic where Kreese wanted to manipulate him, or not manipulate him, but he wanted to have him open the dojos, and he's like, I got to work for my dad. I don't want to go down that path. I think that it really is, you nailed it. It's a relationship built on this war situation. It's of traumatic events. Someone mentioned PTSD. They're sort of bonded together by these things that happen to them. And I don't know how really close of friends they actually are. I think it's an IOU, and it just went on for, 30, 40 years at this point. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And Terry was the one to constantly bring up how much he owes him, right?
Yeah.
So Kreese hasn't really hung it over Terry all these years. And then the one time Kreese brings it up, Terry flips out at him over it. So I really do feel like the friendship is really at the whims of Silver, and he can say all he wants that, oh, I owe you my life, I owe you my life, I'm in debt to you forever. Yeah, until it's not convenient for him anymore, and until maybe their ideals of how Cobra Kai should be run don't intersect anymore. That's when the friendship is over. And maybe Silver was more of a friend to Kreese, whereas Kreese is, maybe used as a pawn more to Terry, and as to his whims.
Yeah, exactly. Just hi, Eliana. It's my niece Eliana said hi. So just hi, how you doing, Eliana? Great. Thank you for watching. Here's a fascinating question. How do you think, from Shinobi, how do you think Terry Silver will handle Tory finding out about him cheating? So, as you'll remember, at the end of season 4, Tory saw Terry talking to the ref about paying him off. How do you think Terry will react to that?
I think Terry thinks it's totally justified, and if Tory has any ill feelings toward it, he'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Like, of course, I think you were going to win anyway, but I had to cover my bases just in case. We had to win at all costs, and that's how I think that he would react to that.
I think it's definitely going to drive a wedge in whatever relationship they were starting to form, because Kreese seemed a little bit more protective of her, sort of like what he was doing with Johnny. And it's almost like he was looking at her sort of like a Johnny. And with Terry's like, I thought you just want to win. Like, I got to do this. And he might not have even needed to do it. But the interesting thing about Tory is it's definitely going to drive a wedge in their relationship, because we talked about this on the podcast. So go check it out if you guys have time. But what's interesting is she never really had anything she could call her own. And she finally won this thing, or at least it seems that she felt that way throughout her life. She's taking care of her family and all this stuff. And from her perspective, now she finally did this thing and she was super proud of it. And now she's feeling potentially like it's a fraud or a sham. And he probably didn't even need to do that, to be honest. And it raises questions about whether he even did that in Karate Kid 3 with Mike Barnes back in the day. Like, did he also bribe the refs during that time? And how much money was he exchanging here? That's what I want to know. How much of that mindfulness app money is he dropping in there? So I don't know. What do you think, Ken?
I think that this is one scenario where I really wish we had a little more time, because we got these scenes that built this relationship between John Kreese and Tory, right? As you were talking about, John Kreese is almost kind of like a mentor father figure to Tory, helping her out.
Mm-hmm.
We never got to see that on Terry's side. And so it would have been interesting to have a few more scenes between Terry and Tory to see if he tries to take Tory as, his student, as someone that he cares about. We know that he gave her money for the prom, but aside from that, they didn't have too much of a personal connection. So it would have been very interesting, because right now, the way it's presented, I could see Tory really going to visit Kreese in prison, and almost kind of Kreese being closer to her and asking her for information about Terry and that kind of thing. I don't see her as having like any kind of commitment to Terry. So, but I bet you're right. I think Terry might say like, hey, I didn't doubt you at all. It's just what we need to do to make sure we win. And maybe he'll even bring up her mother and, try to, manipulate her. I think it'll be interesting to see, but
he's the master.
Yes.
Yeah. I do hope to see a more one-on-one scenario with Terry and any student, whether it be Tory. Maybe it's less likely just because of the wedge that could be drawn here. We saw it briefly with Kenny, but it didn't get too in depth. But we definitely need to see Terry get his claws in on a student and maybe mentor someone face-to-face, one-to-one, rather than just a kind of a background player and a secondary coach as he was most of the season.
Oh, totally agree. And again, Ben says Thomas Ian Griffith deserves an Emmy.
Yeah,
100% agree with
Absolutely.
that.
Start a petition, man.
Yes, I know. Can we
start
tweeting a movement? Yes. AEH says, I think Kreese can handle the trauma better than Silver, because Kreese may have had a more difficult upbringing than Terry, and therefore Kreese has learned earlier in life to handle trauma. It's interesting because in a flashback scene in season 4, we learn that Terry Silver's father had a company. I guess that company was Dynatox. I don't know. It wasn't mentioned, but he inherited the company from his father. So it looks like he might have had a softer upbringing. Maybe, we don't know if that was a functional household or what, but this is a good point that Kreese had a lot of trauma growing up. And what do you guys think of that idea?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And with Silver, maybe he had things on a silver platter. He handed things to him, but for real, I do agree with that. And I think Kreese had that, even the relationship with forget his family, but just even through the army, right? His superiors kind of beating down on him and stuff like that. I think he probably maybe is a little bit more grizzled, and Terry had maybe not as much to deal with. And I think it's a really insightful comment too, because you can kind of see Terry breaking down in the cage, whereas Kreese is a little bit more, tougher. I mean, not that he, there's anything to be said about that, but he handles that situation maybe calmer, and Kreese shows his the way that he feels uncomfortable. He shows it a little bit more, and I think that was a good indicator of it too. So I agree with that.
Absolutely. Okay, here's kind of a more larger question. If you think Barnes comes back, we'll get a promo like the one that Terry got, that amazing teaser promo. I don't know. I have some thoughts, but Badway, do you think we'd get a Mike Barnes promo if that character came back?
Yeah, I think there would be a tease, but I don't know if it would be as grand or as I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't know. Theatrical, spine tingling. I think Terry is more of a cult figure in my opinion than Barnes is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see Mike Barnes come back, and I feel like he will. But I do feel like it might be one of the things where maybe they don't show it till the final trailer. But I don't think he'll get a solo promo, the treatment that maybe Terry got. We won't get the silhouette, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
The one thing about Terry in season 4, here's what I think, is that he was there very first episode, very early. He was a major character in the entire season. So I think you're not spoiling anything by giving him a teaser like that. Like, boom, Terry Silver's back. Mike Barnes, I think it depends. Like, if he's going to be back for a good chunk of the season, then maybe they'll tease him, But if they're going to say it, and they love to do this, if they're going to save him for like a late season surprise, I don't think they'll tip their hand. I don't think we'll know about that.
Well, I agree with you, Ken, because the way that you mentioned about how much Terry was in the season, and even at the end, right, at the end of the previous season, Kreese made the phone call. Everyone kind of thought he was probably calling Terry, and it set up right there so that he was going to be in the first episode. I think it depends a lot on how much he's going to be in it and at what point is he going to be in it. And I think, Battle, you nailed it too. Terry's this larger than life figure. Like, Barnes obviously is a huge cult favorite as well, but the difference in the way that they are behind the scenes versus, I don't know, it's really going to depend, I think, on where the season goes. And in a way, like, I kind of hope they don't show it, because I think it would be more fun to kind of like, is he going to show up? Is he going to show up? And that's how I felt the first couple seasons waiting for Terry Silver to show up. So,
well, for example, was Chosen in any of the previews, or was that a surprise?
I think that was a surprise, right?
I don't think he was in any of the previews.
He was. I don't
remember.
He was in, I think, the very last preview. They teased him like there in a teaser. It was almost like if you froze a frame, you could kind of tell it was Chosen. And I think the last full trailer, he said something, along the lines of like, "Are you sure? You learned everything from Mr. Miyagi." That I think it was that moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Random says, out of Zabka, Macchio, and Griffith, who do you think deserves the Oscar the most?
I can't answer this. I'm not allowed, so my answer.
Yeah. I think they're all fantastic actors. They really all should be rewarded. I know it's kind of a tough field. I know it's kind of a strange. I don't know what the Emmy politics are. They're in half-hour comedy category. It's kind of, and there's some other great shows, but all of them really need to, like, I think even, obviously Thomas Ian Griffith, but Ralph Macchio's had a lot of time, being praised, but William Zabka, he's another actor, and he went into filmmaking and, behind the camera a lot. And, even the Sweep the Leg music video by No More Kings, check that out. That's great. He directed that. But William Zabka, I mean, I think he needs to be praised. I mean, he's just amazing. I think
he's so good. He doesn't get enough credit.
He was great this season and all seasons, but really season 1 for him. I didn't know he had it in him to have that range of both comedy and drama. So like he was, for sure, he'd be up there. But I think Ian Griffith definitely would be in the supporting category just because there's 15 minutes of screen time.
Comeback player of the year.
But if we're going for main actors, that I would give it to Zabka over a Macchio.
Yeah, I have strong feelings too. We talked about this on the show that we did together about Daniel's character this season, just in general, right? Like, and I think maybe it's a credit to how well Macchio did, but I feel like I consistently find myself taking Johnny's side in every argument constantly. And I think, Ken, you made a good video about this, and I think there was something I watched where you were talking about how he kind of does his own thing, whereas, you know, it seems like Daniel's just regurgitating all the Miyagi-Do stuff. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that, oh, but Mr. Miyagi said this, Mr. Miyagi said that. And I get that it's his mentor and this person that he holds up larger than life, but I sort of like how Daniel kind of takes his own spin on some things. Yes, he's doing Cobra Kai karate, but he's turning it into his own thing. And I like that. And maybe you could argue like Miyagi-Do is perfect, so you don't need to change it. But maybe Chosen will bring that out of him in maybe the further season, because he just seems really stubborn. And that's a credit to Macchio acting, I think. But the character itself was, I found, a little bit more grating than previous seasons, especially how he treated like his daughter. And I don't know. I just find myself keeping myself on Johnny's side a lot of times here. So.
Yeah. And I think that's the writer's intention, I feel, even is to paint Johnny as the ultimate good guy here, and having Daniel-san as, he's a good guy, but he's wrong, and he's been wrong for a lot of the season, and just forcefully resisting Eagle Fang. So
right.
Yeah. And I do want to mention real quick, I'm looking at the chats here, and Johnny Utah shouting out, "I love you too, Robbie," as the quote when he misnamed his love as he was drunken on the bed. And that was definitely an Emmy worthy scene. Dude, all around.
That was brutal. Yeah. That's like, man, the acting was great. I mean, Zabka doesn't get enough credit. Like, I'm going to sit here and fanboy about Thomas Ian Griffith all day, but William Zabka, like you said, Ken, he's awesome. He does a great job. In season 1, I didn't think he had it in him either. Like, I knew he was good, but it's a credit to the writing too. So it's just, he's a great character.
He and Miguel in that scene, got me good.
Said it like a few single tear.
Single tear.
Yes, we had and it's a really interesting thing that you bring up about Daniel, because and not necessarily to get it back towards Star Wars, but in the sequel trilogy, it's interesting. They kind of made the choice that they wanted to run away from like the installments that people didn't like as much. So I guess that would be like the prequel trilogy. But really, what I really love about Cobra Kai is that they didn't do that. They actually, you could call Karate Kid 3 maybe the equivalent of the prequels, right? Like, people didn't like that one as much. People wanted to focus on the first one and the second one, but not really so much the third one. But really, Cobra Kai, they dug into Karate Kid 3 and they pulled out all these great elements. Terry Silver's an element, but another element is really we talked about, you guys talked about Daniel, being stubborn and sometimes being annoying, and how Johnny's character is more sympathetic. We kind of root for him a bit more, but really that aspect of Daniel is kind of best shown in Karate Kid 3. So we're getting the Karate Kid 3 Daniel, I think, a lot this season. And so I think it kind of goes to show you that you really have to take the whole thing together and bring that in if you're going to be reviving a property. We're doing this thing with Palpatine moments. Major Palpatine moment for me after he flips Keenan, says good, huge Emperor moment. Totally
that was
agree.
Pretty good. Yeah,
that is great. So if you guys see some other Palpatine moments in season 4, let us know in the chat. We'll bring them up. Let's see. We've got John Kreese abused Terry and re-traumatized him over a slight bruised ego. Evil move. Yeah,
totally.
Go ahead. Sorry. That goes back to our talk about maybe handling the war better, Kreese versus Silver, and just his internal thoughts. Kreese flipped out at the slightest hint of having a weakness.
Yeah.
So Kreese seems to have been brought up to show absolutely no weakness, and it translated itself in the war scenes in season 3 and 4, and it certainly translated here to where it was the turning point of their partnership and friendship, where he dare question the existence of a weakness.
Yeah. Can I tell you about? We talked about his acting. The scene that I found myself just throughout the season just rooting for Terry. Obviously, I'm a fan, and I don't often find myself rooting for what you would call the villain, right? But I was getting disappointed, and I felt this emotional roller coaster as he was sort of getting got by Kreese, like especially the scene where he walks in with the beer and he gives him like the beer, and he's basically checks him and tells him like, this is my place. Don't watch your step. Know your role, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Terry's like, the look on Terry's face, he looked completely crushed. And where he went from there, where he, lures Johnny into the abandoned dojo, and he's like, I thought this is what you wanted. And the way that he just slowly unravels, like, I love that aspect of the character all the way to the end, where we have it as the picture in your promo and on our podcast. He waits until that last moment to sip that champagne, and it's just a masterclass in acting. And I didn't see it coming. And when it happened, I literally stood up in my house and I was like, oh my God, like I couldn't believe it. They got me. And, it's just so good. And the relationship and the way that it was this topsy-turvy thing the whole season, and then it finally flipped on the end, I was cheering for Terry. And it's like, I don't know, you talk about Star Wars, Ken. It reminded me a little bit of Empire Strikes Back, where you leave the season on maybe like a downer ending, but for me it was a high. And for people that don't know Terry Silver, maybe they were like, damn, I don't want this guy to win. But for me, I was cheering. I was happy. So I don't know. I was glad.
Right. You with someone who's so great at their planning and just so gleeful about it, you want to see them rule the world, right? Yeah. And that's what I love going into season 5, is that, hopefully we're going to see Terry on top of the world.
Yeah.
Here's a question. How will Terry Silver react when Daniel didn't shut down Miyagi-Do? Bad way?
Well, I mean, are we sure that he's not? I mean, he's probably not shutting it down, but are we sure he's not shutting it down? I mean, we might get episode 1 where it's down, or please remind me. Is it both Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang? Are they both to be shut down, or was it just Miyagi-Do?
Right. It's both of them. Okay. Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang. That was the deal with Kreese. But okay, so Chosen shows up at the end. So I guess what I'm not clear on yet is if Daniel is reopening Miyagi-Do, or if Chosen's technically going to be opening a new dojo that'll be the same thing. Like, is that how they get around it?
That could be simple.
But doesn't he say something like, there's something along the lines of like, why should I honor an agreement with people who have no honor? Daniel says something like that.
Yeah. Which is true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting take on it. I think he should, and probably what would be the loophole is Chosen will open something else, and then it'll just be, oh well, I shut it down, and I don't know that Terry will care anyway. He might call him out, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to bring him to court. I mean, he would win that battle in court, but I don't think he's going to bring him to court. I think he'd be more satisfied with crushing his opponents once more by force rather than through the courtroom.
Yeah.
And anyway, they could just open Miyagi Fang and just call it something different. Like, really.
Eagle Doe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, here we go. Utah's comment about the award for Zabka for the "I love you" to Robbie. Yeah, that was a great moment. Yep. Okay, here's a question from Bryce Productions. Do you think Dutch will be Kreese's cellmate and tell Kreese that Cobra Kai is the reason Dutch is in prison? And Kreese then realizes that Cobra Kai has to be stopped in season 5. Interesting. That's a detailed, interesting theory. What do you guys think?
I think, here, and we said this a little bit on the podcast, I think there's part of me that doesn't want every single person to have a redemption arc. And what I mean by that is sometimes people are just evil, and I kind of want them to be evil. And I see where they're going with Kreese, and it's going to be him turning it around. So part of me doesn't really want that to happen, and not because it wouldn't be cool or anything, but because, you know what, sometimes I just want people to be bad, and that's just it. So it would be interesting. It's an interesting way to bring Dutch back into the fold, put it that way.
Did you guys feel any sympathy for Kreese when he first showed up, and was it season 2?
Like he was the decrepit old man again?
Yeah, he was down on his luck, showing up, just had a duffel bag to his name, showing up on Johnny's doorstep. Did you guys actually feel any remorse for him, and feel bad for him, or did you just know that he had evil intentions?
Bad way. See, and Drew too. And everyone. I have a problem, and my problem is that I see Kreese and Silver as like arch villains. I can't unsee that. I will always suspect them. I thought when Kreese came back and he was doing that, it was a ruse. You know, I just assumed it was because he's a major iconic movie villain. Like, and same thing with Terry Silver. I can't believe that Tofu Terry was totally real. You know, that's just me. That's my failings, I guess, is to see beyond that. But I agree though. I'd like to see. It'd be cool if Kreese is redeemed in some way. But yeah, you kind of just want him to be the bad guy. You know?
That's what I'm saying. Just let us have this. Let us have him just be bad, and that's fine. And then we can tell other stories. And
I think they're going to be redeemed. Yeah, I think they're going to do it, but I would be happier if they didn't. And same with like Terry. I kind of want him to just be bad. And he's not going to win in the end because they won't. But I would be okay with that too. Yeah. Who's going to argue that?
Yeah, absolutely. A reminder that everyone here, Drew and Badway are part of the Last Row podcast, and they do all kinds of movies. Their podcast covers all kinds of great movies from decades past, and they occasionally talk about Terry Silver. And there's a new episode about season 4 and Terry Silver called The Resurrection of Terry Silver, and you can listen to that by clicking on the link in the description. So just wanted to let you guys know about that. And also, we are raising money today. If you do have the money, we are raising money to help the children of Ukraine through UNICEF, and you can click that donate button if you want to help that cause out. We have Aaron saying Thomas has godly acting. Not many has. The rest of the actors are good. And as for Johnny and Daniel, I hate Daniel and loves Johnny.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
Amen.
Yep.
Can't argue that.
Oh, Kreese intervening when Silver was beating up Johnny was like Vader stopping Palpatine from zapping Luke with Force lightning.
I think that was the moment. Honestly, I think that was the moment where he sort of turned and kind of realized, like, what am I doing? Because you could see it, and give Martin Cove the acting credit too, because you could see that on his face. He's like, kind of, what are you doing? And then it was this awesome act off between, I thought this is what you wanted, John. And they were kind of going back and forth, and it was like, man, who's out acting each other, you know?
Great. Yeah. And let us know if you see any more Palpatine moments with Terry Silver. That's a great one. Thank you, Johnny. Here, Melissa asks, how do you think that Chosen and Silver's interactions will go if you could foreshadow their fight scene? And how intense do you think that'll be, as well as different from all the other fights? Ooh, okay.
So, my question to you guys is Terry Silver the best fighter in the town? Like in the city, you know what I mean? Like, can currently no one beat him in hand to hand?
Obviously,
yeah. I don't think anyone can.
So you have to go out of town, right? You just have to. So,
but you gotta bring in a Merc.
you have to go out of country. Even you have to go out of country. He might be the toughest guy in the United States. So you have to go. You have to go to Japan.
I mean, I think this one would be interesting because when you look at it, right, you even see at the end of the tournament, Daniel was trying to tell his daughter, like, don't go their way, right? He didn't want her to take on other styles. And I think Chosen's proven that he understands, look, you got to kind of fight a little bit more offensively. Like, he has that other offshoot of Miyagi-Do that he understands. He taught him the pressure points, the things like that. How much does he know that he didn't teach Daniel? And how much does he know that he's maybe going to unleash on Silver? And I think if there's anyone that can go toe-to-toe with Terry, I do think it's Chosen. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see if they actually have a physical confrontation or if it's going to be more like emotional and psychological manipulation, which would be interesting. But I think that if there's anyone that's on his level, it's probably Chosen. I don't know if you guys agree.
Would it be out of line for me to want a sidekick style, like all talents tournament? I don't know if you guys know the movie Sidekicks with Jonathan Brandis and
Chuck Norris.
Yeah, Chuck Norris.
How could I forget
that guy? That young guy.
That little actor. Yeah. No, but can we have that type of scenario tournament in a future season of Cobra Kai where we get all of the participants from all age groups,
and
all styles just come together, so we can see Terry compete, we can see Daniel and Johnny compete, and maybe Chosen is the guy waiting the wing that they bust out.
Because they started it when you think about the skills competition, they added it into this, you know, and it's like you're going to get Joe Piscopo saying he doesn't compete because of me.
Yeah, like I'll take a street fight of Chosen versus Silver, and just like they had a legit competition between Johnny and Daniel in season 4, that was great. But it would be awesome to see, you know, in with a crowd, confines, tournament on the line for ultimate karate supremacy.
Yeah.
I want to see an all-encompassing tournament, not just All Valley.
The adults. And Street
Yeah.
Fight would be fun, including
Yeah.
the bonus level where they have to beat up the car. Like, I would
Yeah.
like to watch
Yeah.
Terry Silver and like all these guys trying to break the car up.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there's a great comment in here from Supremo. Silver will attempt to mess with Chosen's visa. That is fantastic.
He'll never get in the country.
That's the kind of thing that Terry would do, though, isn't it?
would,
Like,
yeah.
he's that smart. He knows he has
Yeah.
connections. He's probably got somebody at that department in the U.S. government. He's going to bribe everybody.
2 steps ahead.
Fantastic comment there. That's so spot on.
Well, that's the great thing about Terry, and I hope for season 5 that he goes towards that larger than life thing. Like, this guy supposedly is a billionaire. He has all these resources.
Yeah.
And it would just be amazing to see all the fun ways Terry could really mess with his enemies like that and taking away his visa. Let's see. Hi, Kenny. It's Mario. Do you think Anthony's friends will join Cobra Kai? Kenny hates them at first, but eventually they become his friends and bully Anthony together, and Anthony joins Miyagi-Do. Now, I'm going to throw this to Badway, because if you listen to the podcast, you'll learn that this is Badway's favorite storyline of the entire season.
No,
not really. But on this, do you think? What do you think about that? Because obviously it's new bullying, and alliances. Like, how do you see that shaking down?
First of all, I don't hate the storyline. Don't paint me out. Don't paint me out to hate the kids.
I kind of do.
I like the kids, but I just wanted more time with the proper the main stories. I feel like we talked about this before about it'd be great if we had longer episodes, longer than 30 minutes, so we can flesh out a lot of these characters a lot more. I think the Kenny storyline and the Anthony storyline would have been more interesting with more time and not kind of rushed along. But I don't know how I feel about Anthony. And going forward, I didn't think he was a necessarily strong character, and I'm not sure I'm excited about his future on the show, but hopefully I'm pleasantly surprised where they bring him. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the interesting thing about the Anthony storyline is I'll relate it back to Daniel, because it just highlights like how much of I'm going to say this is going to be bad, but how much I don't like Daniel, because he just didn't give a crap about his son, or at least that's the picture that they painted, to the point where he becomes this, and now I got to step in. Now I got to try to parent him. It's like, dude, where have you been?
Yeah, where have you been?
And, you know, I know that they did that on purpose, and it was sort of a running joke. And I like how the writers sort of took that and turned it into something, versus like, well, where's Anthony? Oh, he's barely in the show. Yeah. It's like, oh, well, this is what would happen if you sort of ignore him. And, you know, the kids that he was hanging out with were kind of jerks. I did think it was interesting, though, when they showed like the other kids from Miyagi-Do sort of doing a Cobra Kai style bullying to Kenny, like you mentioned. And it was like, okay, you know, the show is lots of shades of gray, you know, maybe not quite 50, but there's plenty of shades of gray. And it's like, I think it's interesting to see that not everybody's so good or evil, like black and white. It's very, very nuanced. And I think that was the interesting thing about that. But I agree with Badway. Like, I think they didn't give it enough time, and there's just not enough time in like a 25 to 35 minute show to put this in. And I think there's so many good characters. You brought it up, Ken. I think you said, would it benefit from a longer format? And I really do. Like, I don't think anyone would complain about this being a 60-minute episode style show. I think it would give it more time to breathe. And we talked a lot about that on the podcast.
Absolutely. And here's a comment from Marcus. I feel sorry for Daniel's mom when she had to clean Daniel's jeans when Johnny put the blueberry pie in Daniel's seat. That's funny, because that's a deleted scene from the first Karate Kid. But I will say this. I always missed Daniel's mom in parts 2 and 3, Karate Kids parts 2 and 3, because that was a really nice relationship between Daniel and his mom in the first Karate Kid. And I like how they brought her back, you know, for a couple episodes in Cobra Kai. I wish she was kind of around more. And I understand she can't be with like all the craziness going on, but with a longer show, you know, maybe you could bring Daniel's mom back, you know, because she was a witness to like all this stuff, you know, in the first one. And we really don't get her perspective too much on these events that are happening. Let's see. Well, guys, we're probably going to wrap this up in the next 5 to 10 minutes. So if you have anything else that you want to talk about, I'll try to get to as many comments as possible. Zaround says maybe the show could also be expanded with books and novels, as some other shows and movies have.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. So now, is Drew and Badway, since we only have like a few more minutes left, what are your hopes for the future for Terry Silver? What are the things that you want to see that maybe we haven't seen yet? What would you like out of Terry?
Do you want to go first, Badway?
You go ahead, Drew.
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, the thing that I'm most excited about, and you alluded to it earlier, Ken, is more like Terry had about 15 minutes of screen time. I want to see him, especially on the business side of things. I want to see him more like the person who joked about removing Chosen's visa or blocking the visa. I want to see that kind of stuff, less about maybe him sort of, now that he's full evil again, and I want to see what he's going to do. How is he going to manipulate the situations? And I want to see him really front and center and really just driving the narrative of the show, because I think he can certainly handle it. The actor Thomas Ian Griffith can certainly handle it, and I think it would be really interesting to see where he manipulates other people. So if there's a way he can get in between Johnny and Daniel and Chosen, I think he'll probably do that. That psychological manipulation, like you saw in Karate Kid 3, where he was sort of pretending. Does he try to bring any other kids in now? And does he mess with any of the students? I think that would be really cool if he tries to poach maybe like Hawk or somebody like that, even though he kind of turned around and is good again. That would be really cool for me. And I want to see more screen time of him. Like, he's earned it, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe the obvious thing here would be Anthony going to Cobra Kai and Terry getting his claws on Daniel's son. So, I mean, that's something that I feel like is going to happen. Whether or not it's going to be, I don't know. I hope that the Anthony character is just more fleshed out in that regard. But please remind me, was Terry married to that woman with the mindfulness app, or they were just dating? Right?
They were dating.
I would like Terry to see Terry in his relationship, like maybe some scenes of him at home.
Yeah.
And as he's spiraling back to evil Terry, and by the end of season 4, he's full blown evil Terry. I would like to still see him in that relationship and maybe see how he treats his significant other at home, and how maybe his mania with karate at All Valley goes to affect his home life and his private life. I want to see more of his private life. I want to see him in the hot tub. I want to see him cutting deals. As Drew said, I want to see him cutting deals in the hot tub, man. I want to see more of that. Bring back some of those hits.
Because they didn't talk much about what happened in between. He said he went to therapy. Yeah. I want to see like what happened after Karate Kid 3. Like, we don't know. Did he go to jail? Did he bribe a bunch of people? Yeah. Like, so we're missing that.
Yeah.
So some of the best scenes of the show The Sopranos was Tony at Dr. Melfi's the psychiatrist office. I want to see Terry in a relationship, a professional relationship with a psychiatrist. I want to see some of those sessions. I feel like that would really get us into his mind, and I feel like there's a very clear way to get into his mind, unfiltered through the psychiatrist.
Right. I love that, Badway. That's a great thought. I think, for me, I love it when Terry's all powerful. To me, a great thing, I don't know if it would ever happen, would be if somehow Terry, I don't know if it's through Anthony or someone else, but gets to Daniel, where Daniel actually falls away. Like, he's been so insistent on following Mr. Miyagi's teachings and stuff, but Daniel to the point where he crumbles or he goes in a different direction, and it's like Chosen or Johnny have to pull Daniel back. I don't know if there's room for it in the show, but I love any moment where Terry can be all powerful. I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Dave mentioned a trip to Tahiti too. We gotta see him go back to Tahiti and Deanna's house.
And one of the commenters here, Cyborgana, wrote, "Cheyenne got ghosted. It's beyond over." I forgot. Yeah, he was declining her phone calls. So maybe he clawed back to her and apologized. Who knows?
Yeah,
we can dream.
It is beyond over.
Yeah, he was ghosting her though. Yeah, he was.
And Xavier says, everyone that we care about will leave Cobra Kai by the end of season 5. And in season 6, Terry's Cobra Kai will be full of Mike Barnes type No Mercy kids to go against everyone we care about.
Yeah.
That sounds like an epic recipe for some kind of cataclysmic battle.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we've kind of wrapped up. We've had this great discussion. I want to thank Drew and Badway from the Last Row podcast. They were here to talk about Terry. And thank you guys. It's so much fun to talk to you every time. Please, everyone, go check out, if you want more of this, we have an amazing discussion. The Last Row podcast, it's in the description below. There's a link. Just subscribe to that podcast in general. It's amazing. But listen to the bonus episode on Terry. It's like more of this, and it goes deeper. And do you guys have anything you'd like to say?
Just thank you, Ken, for having us. It's always a pleasure to be on here, and thanks to everybody in the chat. It's awesome to be able to talk to other people that like Terry Silver. So as Chris once coined, the Terry Silver enthusiasts, and what do we say, the brain trust? So it's fun to do this, and thanks for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thank you everybody who commented. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching. We'll do more of these. We love talking to you, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye. Thanks.